Greetings and welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you're here today in New York City. We're going to discuss Black Friday releases coming up at the end of this week. I don't have all of them, but the ones I do have I want to talk about is B.B. King, live at the 1977 Nancy Jazz Pulsations Festival, Emily Remler, Cooking at the Queen's, Bill Evans in the Norway, Charles Tolliver, live at Captain's Cabin, Sun Ra, Lights on a Satellite, live at the Left Bank. And as always, if you could please like and subscribe so I can continue to do this thing of ours into the ongoing future. And who knows what the future holds, considering the state of the populace today. But we're not here to talk about politics or the cost of tea in China. Let's begin with B.B. King live in France, or just B.B. King in France, 1977. It's interesting. There's a big backlash now against Eric Clapton. He said a lot of stupid things, I guess. He's just a musician, you know. He's not a politician. He's not a humanist. He's not a therapist. But when I was a kid, after Eric Clapton was in the Blues Breakers, then he was in Cream, then Derek and the Dominoes, then his solo album that he played on everybody else's albums, he was considered a great guitarist. Now, granted, everything he ever played, he stole from B.B. King, Freddie King, and Albert King. But still, unless you were familiar with those blues players, which in the early 60s or the mid 60s, the late 60s, early 70s, most people weren't. Most kids in white suburban America weren't. But you regularly had Eric Clapton saying, "I'm not the greatest guitar player in the world. I'm not God. B.B. King is the greatest guitar player in the world." And because of that, B.B. King rose in prominence, not to mention his incredible talent. Now, this record really captures a state-of-the-art live performance of B.B. King in 1977. It's a production. It's a show, you know, akin to a James Brown show. Not everybody had a show. Like Aretha, I think, didn't have a show, Aretha Franklin. She just came out and played her music like she was at church. But you think about the James Brown show, he had a real performance. He wore a cape. He danced off the stage. He had amazing steps. He directed the band. And, you know, the whole idea of a review, like Bobby Blue Bland was another one, very famous in blues circles, had a show, a performance. You know, television had only come about in the mid-50s, so people still went to a lot of live music, so performers had to really put on a show, which they still do before we went into that period in the 70s when people just came out and played. But anyway, this is a great 2 LP set. If you don't know B.B. King, this is really a pretty good place to start because it covers some of his biggest hits. The Thrill Is Gone, Why I Sing the Blues, with a really great band, none of whom I recognize at this point in time. But it's just a really well-oiled unit. It's a well-oiled performance. And his guitar is burning. His guitar, which he called Lucille, just had such an amazing tone. And it just, man, it's just fiery. It's like a fire-breathing dragon, his guitar. Even though, you know, he played very simple, a lot of sustain, but it was so powerful. So there's the back cover. Some good liner notes. A limited edition of 3,500. This is a very well recorded live performance. I don't know what the original recordings produced by Andre Francis. This is a Deep Digs Elemental Records release from October 7th, 1977. You know, my favorite B.B. King record is Indianola, Mississippi Seeds. He was born in Indianola, Mississippi. And the album cover is a watermelon with a guitar neck put into it. You know, that might be kind of racist now, but even looking at it now, it's a beautiful piece of, you know, commercial art. This big watermelon half with a guitar neck stuck into it. And that's an incredible album. Leon Russell produced it. It has great musicians like Russ Kunkel is on it, and Leon playing keyboards. And then I also used to collect, well, I bought, you know, Ace Records of the UK put out all these amazing reissues and compilations of B.B. King from his earliest recordings. Man, those are incredible. I mean, you see why he was a star. Some other blues guys, I wouldn't say B.B. King was slick, but he had a main line to emotion. He knew how to condense it and perform it and present it, where maybe some other, you know, not electric bluesman or perhaps more profound bluesmen like Lightnin' Hopkins or Mississippi Fred McDowell or any number of great blues players didn't connect in quite the way he did. because he had a real sense of performance and show, and he would talk a lot. I mean, he dressed well. He was slick. I saw B.B. King once at B.B. King's here in New York on 42nd Street. This includes Blue Monk, kind of unusual. Caledonia. Caledonia was a big hit for his. Sweet Little Angel, I Like to Live to Love, that was another hit. It's just a matter of time. Why I Sing the Blues, that was popular. I Got Some Outside Help, The Thrill Is Gone, maybe his biggest hit. I Need My Baby, Sweet 16, blues instrumental. When I'm Gone, Have Faith. Outro blues instrumental where he's dancing off probably. But an excellent release, great sound quality, a good introduction to B.B. King. Emily Remler, Cooking at the Queen's, live in Las Vegas, 1984 and 1988. Emily Remler's story is tragic. She made a handful of records on Concord. She was actually married to Monty Alexander for a while, which I didn't know before doing a little research. This is a 2 LP set. The sound is quite good. Produced for release by Zev Feldman and my buddy Bill Milkowski, who I believe has written a lot about Emily. And she, when you listen to her, you can tell her main influence is Wes Montgomery. And there's a little Pat Martino in there at times as well. But she plays beautifully. The thing is, she's so much better than the band she's playing with. The drummer in particular is really pedestrian and kind of holds everything down. The piano player and the bass player are okay, but she's the star. And it's kind of a drag that she died in 1990. It's kind of a drag that she couldn't have a better backing group, because she's just like rocket fuel on this thing. And they're just not. So you have to listen to this, and it's easy to listen to because she is so brilliant. It's a revelation how great she plays once she lifts off from the quartet she's playing in. I mean, so many, you know, you could say, oh, she's copying Wes Montgomery. The only other person who successfully copied Wes Montgomery really was George Benson, you know, and maybe bits of Pat Metheny. He's not an easy guy to copy. So she plays all these beautiful chordal solos, single note solos, often within the same solo, and it's just beautifully done. It's a 2 LP set. The sound, I'd say the sound between 1 and 10 is an 8. Yeah. Limited to 2,300 pressings. Full Zev Feldman tribe of George Claiborne and Zach Shelby Sisko. And she does basically just a whole, her repertoire of standards and Brazilian stuff. Moanin' by Art Blakey, How Insensitive. Autumn Leaves, which is hard to play for guitar players. Polka Dots and Moonbeams. Samba de Erfo. Hot House. You Don't Know What Love Is. West Coast Blues. Tender Madness by Sonny Rollins. Out of Nowhere. Mahana de Carnival. All Blues, Yesterday. So she does a version of So What. And you know, she put out records on Concord, and she's kind of limited by her backup band there too, unfortunately, because to me those Concord records are from the 80s, the Concord records. It's sort of like the Wine and Cheese set. You know, it's weird because Concord went on later. The guy who owned Concord bought up all these labels, so now Concord owns everything. They own Fantasy, they own so many labels. But those records that are actually really hard to find now from the 80s on Concord, they had Herb Ellis records and Jay Canna and Frank Capp and all these people. They're a little polite, you know. She should have been recorded with a fire-breathing New York City rhythm section, because that's what she deserved. Apparently she also had an affair with Larry Coryell. You hear a little bit of that in there. But this is a beautiful recording, if a tragic recording, because in some ways she sounds better on these 2 records than she does on any of her own records, because she really gets to stretch out, even though she's held back by this band. But of these 5 records I'm going to talk about, this is definitely one that that I'm going to keep and hold on to. It's a great performance, except for the drummer. Oh no, another Bill Evans record. Zev, why do you keep releasing these Bill Evans records? One after another, after another, after another. These records, if you want to just look at it from a collectible standpoint, these are highly collectible records. The only one they've repressed is Some Other Time. I know at the Jazz Record Center, where I still work on Saturdays, they're all gone. When they come out, they're gone. They don't come back, because Bill Evans is a very popular artist in general. This is a trio of Eddie Gomez and Marty Morell. This is extremely well recorded in Norway, recorded at the Kongsberg Jazz Festival at Kongsberg Kino Norway, Friday, June 26, 1970. I assume this is done from the original tapes. I assume this is done from a board recording because this is a wonderful recording. Hands down, it sounds exceptional. There's a great photo of Bill. Another great photo of Bill. And everybody plays really beautifully. I think this is an inspired concert, beautifully captured. He does all his trademark, Quiet Now, Emily, Glorious Step, does Nardis, Come Rain or Come Shine, Turn Out the Stars. If you're a Bill Evans fan, I would think this is an essential recording. There's no dropout, everything sounds great, it's beautiful, it sounds wonderful on my stupid high-end system. And just a beautiful trio recording. And Eddie Gomez and Marty Morell are both in high form, and it's great to hear them playing so well. At one point, I wasn't really paying attention. I was thinking, geez, this is Scott LaFaro. No, it's Eddie Gomez. And often in the 70s, this is 1970, but later in the 70s, Eddie Gomez, from what I understand, what I hear, was recorded often with these pickup mics. They just sound horrible. All you hear is the touch of the bass. You don't get the depth, the body, the ambient texture of the bass. But here he just recorded kind of natural with the mic, and it just sounds wonderful. The drums are beautifully recorded. So I think 10 out of, this is a 10 out of 10. This is definitely worth buying. It has, I think the usual array of beautiful people being interviewed. And there, I noticed on all these, they really go out of their way to show you the tape case. If they have a tape case, they show it to you. And interview with Roy Helvin, Craig Taborn, a wonderful pianist on ECM. Bill Evans interviewed by Randy Hulton. This is quite a thick booklet. The B.B. King is really just a slip. This is a booklet. This is like a 7-page booklet. Evans of Norway by Mark Myers. Mark Myers, who does the wonderful Jazz Wax blog. So, for my money, this is a killer. Similar to Bill Evans, what would a record store day or a Black Friday to be without a Sun Ra release? I'm not the world's biggest Sun Ra fan just because I don't know a lot about him. But this record is a riot. It starts out with a drum intro. It's 2 LPs, Live at the Left Bank, July 23rd, 1978. Now this sounds, the recording quality of this is very well recorded. This is better sound quality than the Emily Remler, which the Emily Remler sounds like she's playing in a hotel. That record really bothers me just because she didn't get the respect she deserved while she was alive. And man, is she a wonderful player. But anyway, the sound quality is better on this. This is his big band. There's some beautiful playing on this record. And it's a travelogue through space. I don't know if these are tunes he's done elsewhere. I assume they are. And the name is perfect. Lights on a Satellite, Live at the Left Bank, Sun Ra. This is better quality sound than the last thing I reviewed as a Record Store Day release from Sun Ra. This is beautiful sound quality. I don't know how they did it in 1978. But he does Tapestry from an Asteroid, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, A Pleasant Place in Space, Big John Special, Lights on a Satellite, Lady Bird, Half Nelson. Half Nelson, I believe, is the Oliver Nelson or Sonny Rollins tune. Watusi, They Plan to Leave. You get big ensembles. You get concise, beautifully played solos. You get a lot of madness. There's so many Sun Ra albums. This is actually a really good introduction if you don't know much about Sun Ra, because it's well recorded, it's well presented. I know we're going to hear more of the Left Bank Jazz Society, but I thought this was fantastic. They also sent me the Al Jarreau release. I personally cannot stand Al Jarreau. I don't know why they put that out. I think that'll be a bomb. I don't think that'll sell. That's just me trying to be honest with you. Last but certainly not least, some would say first, last, best, Charles Tolliver, Music Inc., Live at the Captain's Cabin. I think this is 1973. This is a blistering performance. Like a lot of jazz in the early 70s, perhaps the ultimate being Miles Davis's Lost Quintet. This is all about stretching, all about exploration, a lot of modal music, a lot of brilliant playing. Charles Tolliver, who co-founded Strat Ease with Stanley Cowell, with his Music Inc. band, John Hicks on piano, Clint Houston on bass, Cliff Barbaro drums. This is a well-oiled machine. All those guys went on to their own fame. Cliff Barbaro is a great drummer. I know he's on some Blue Note records. I think he's on Jackie McLean records. This is very much a set. There are lyrical, gentle tunes. There are blistering blowout tunes. And it's like the best of Strat Ease in a live performance. I don't know what Captain's Cabin is. This is a Corey Weeds presentation. Reel to reel, not a Zell Feldman thing. You know, Corey Weeds has done, he did a wonderful Pepper Adams release. That's my favorite of the things he's done. And this is equally wonderful. There's TOLLIVE with Music Inc. There are tunes he's done here before. Impact, Earl's World. They lead off of Black Vibrations, Truth, Repetition, Stretch. And the recording quality is an 8 out of 10, I would say. It's not as good as the Evans and the Sun Ra. It's better than the Emily Remler. But this really, Charles Tolliver records, you know, he's still alive. He made a record last year, I think, called Connect. He's a very important figure in contemporary jazz, modern jazz, the history of jazz, who really hasn't received his due, even though I think critical listeners love Charles Tolliver. Brilliant trumpet player, brilliant arranger, great composer. I mean, to me, this is the epitome of what jazz should be. Music that connects on several levels. It's cerebral music, it's very visceral music. It swings very hard, has great solos. You know, if you go back to the stupid story that Wynton Marsalis saved jazz, you know, Dexter went to Amsterdam, they all went to Europe. Kenny Clark went to Europe and never came back. I probably did briefly. But there was tons, and I've said this in many videos, there was a lot of great jazz being made in the 70s, particularly in New York on labels like Muse, European labels later like Black Saint Soul Note, Mainstream. CTI captures some of that era of early 70s New York exploration, but there's so much great music. And actually, it's, you know, it's like, in a way, it's the jazz from the 60s burning brightly and going into a comet and burning out, because it's really, really exciting music. I think a lot of the records that Lenny White was on, such as Red Clay, or like CTI records like Joe Farrell's Moon Germs with Jack DeJohnette, the ECM stuff with Jack DeJohnette, those are all killer records that for me are ultimately much more interesting than the endless parade of Blue Note reissues. There's a lot of great music out there, yet your Blue Note has turned into this great corporate shibboleth. You know, these records that Charles Tolliver put out have more to do with like Tony Williams' Lifetime, or San River's Fuchsia Swing Song, or Grasham Makur Something Else, or Evolution, the Jackie McLean records, which were hinting at the future of what was going to come, even a different way of improvising, a much more open way. It's not all about soul jazz. I don't mean to trash the Blue Note stuff, but I just constantly see it in my Instagram feeds. And I picked up this amazing record last week, Sahib Shihab, the Danish radio jazz group. If you want to hear some incredibly forward-thinking, entertaining, delightful jazz, Nels Henning Orsted Pedersen on bass, Alex Riel on drums. This is an amazing record. I'm not sure when this is recorded. It's a beautiful Sam release. It's from 1965. This, I mean, in a way, this kind of, if you think about Michael Garrick, or a friend was over and I played him Sonny Rollins' Alfie after I played this, which has a similar sort of composed soundtrack quality to it. But man, these arrangements are beautiful. They're not as intense and fiery as anything by Charles Tolliver or anything in America at the time, but it's beautifully, beautifully done. This is a great record to search out. That's not the usual thing. And I wanted to mention a few other records that I just received that should be great. Sun Ra Orchestra under the direction of Marshall Allen. I just got this last week. Elemental is doing a bunch of great reissues. Pharoah Sanders, Deaf, Dumb, and Blind. Pharoah Sanders, Loving Us All. Further Conversations with Myself, Bill Evans. So there's I mean, as I've said many times, we are in a golden era of jazz reissues. And I just ask you to open your mind and explore and listen to new things. And you know, and your listening experience will grow richer, and your brain as someone who loves jazz will grow richer and have greater reference points. And you'll be glad you did. Thanks for checking in.